I'm going to show you 5 cool features of the new Festool TSC 55 KEB track saw. Say that 3 times fast. I'll also show you a few other things that I really like about the saw, but these are the 5 main things that are awesome. So the number 1 feature of this saw that I absolutely love is the anti-kickback feature. And if you'll notice on this saw, when you bring the blade down, you'll see a little, it almost looks like a riving knife from the side, but if you look from the back, you'll notice it's actually not in line with the blade. What does that do? That stays in contact with your track, and the instant that starts moving, coming up off the track, it'll actually shut the saw off. And one of the awesome features about the saw is it has a 2-second brake. It has an electronic brake, so the instant power's gone, in less than 2 seconds, it's going to stop the blade. It's just much safer, so you're not potentially going to cut yourself with the blade because it shuts itself off. And you may notice during this video that I actually show the Kreg track saw a couple of times, comparing some minor details between that and the Festool. If you want to see a full breakdown, head-to-head comparison between the Kreg and the Festool, comment below, let me know that. I'll get to work on that video for you. I'll get to work on it before we give this one away. Coming soon, stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button, bell icon, click all so you get notified of all the new content so you don't miss the giveaway on this track saw. The number 2 feature that I absolutely love about this track saw is it's cordless. I don't have to worry about the cable or the extension cord anymore. I can just throw these batteries on there and go. And it'll also operate with just 1 battery. So that's cool, albeit in low power mode. Let me show you. This system actually has 2 18-volt batteries that come with it. You can see a little diagram here on the bottom. This is showing you the track saw and the battery placement. So if I have 2 batteries installed, it powers on super fast. If you take just the top off, we're going into slow mode. You can actually hear the difference in the power. Another cool feature of this technology that they have is these batteries have Bluetooth in them. Now, why would you want Bluetooth in a battery? Well, you can actually sync this battery up with your Festool dust extractor, if you so have one, to automatically come on when you turn the saw on. Or this button right here is actually synced to the Bluetooth now, and I can remote turn the vac on with that button. If you only had the track saw, or if you're working on a job site and you just needed to sync it up for the day or for the week or whatever, you can do that and then resync it back to your sander, however you need to do that. But that's one really cool feature of this technology. I haven't extensively used this saw yet to get the full power of the battery and see how long they're gonna last, but Jason Bent from Bent's Woodworking did one last year in April. And so he used it for days and they lasted a very long time for him. So I have no worries about the battery length, especially how I use the saw. Usually I'm breaking down 1 or 2 pieces of plywood and then I put the saw away because that's what I'm using it for. If that's the case, I won't have any issues having battery life. This video is brought to you by 731woodworks.com. Go check out our online store. We have easy to follow bill plans to help you make awesome projects. If you use the code TRACKSAW, you're gonna get 20% off any order. Go check us out. Number 3 on the list is probably one of the simplest features, but it's one of those things where the devil's in the details. This piece right here actually flips up and gives you access to the tool, so you're not gonna lose that because it's always gonna be in there and protected. But that also actually acts as a stop. While that's flipped up, that brings it down and actually locks it in place so that you can change the blade, or you can switch out this little window for the splinter guard, stuff like that. And speaking of the splinter guard, this track saw has a window there that you can see the blade when you're using it, so you can just kind of look and see where it's cutting, see how the cut's going, but you can take this off actually. And then this is a splinter guard. This will keep you from having splinters. It slips right in there, and then you just tighten this down. And then of course you can adjust it to a depth, whatever depth you're cutting or whatever depth that the height of your stock is, and then you'll tighten it down from there. But it's super simple to switch out. Number 4 on the list is actually the weight. This thing, it has 2 18-volt, 5.2 amp hour batteries on it, and it's really not that heavy. It actually feels lighter, maybe slightly heavier. Let's find out which one of these weigh the most. So the Festool with both batteries and a blade installed, you're looking at 11 pounds, 11.3 ounces, so 11.11. The Kreg, it feels slightly lighter. Yep, 10 pounds, 15, almost 16 ounces, so almost 11 pounds. So less than a pound difference between a cordless and a corded version of a saw like this is not bad. And you really can't tell the difference. Like when I was holding, it's like slight. You can slightly tell the difference. But holding in each hand, it's like I don't know which one is heavier, but if I hold it with this hand and then hold it with this hand, you can kind of feel that difference. Before we get to number 5, I want to go over a couple of little features that I actually like that is pretty cool, but most track saws have them. But if you don't have a track saw, you don't know until you know. Most all track saws have this feature, or at least the two I have do, but it'll go to a -1 degree all the way up to 47 degree bevel cut. That's handy especially if you go in past 45 or past 0, if something that you're making isn't exactly square. So you're trying to fit maybe some shelving into a corner that's not perfectly square, which most houses aren't. So this allows you to go slightly past or slightly under, so you can actually fit those where you need them. It's really easy adjustable with these little turn knobs. They have one on each end, and that allows you to lay it over to any angle you want between -1 and 47. When it goes back flat, it's automatically set at 0. If you want to go to -1, you pull this little lever and pull it to -1. If you want to go past 45, you pull this little piece and it lets it go over those other 2 degrees. But there's a positive stop at 45. You have to actually manipulate that to get it past it. On the bottom of the saw, this is where the track runs. This little piece here runs in that track. On the top, you see these little knobs that you can turn, and that's actually going to tighten or loosen these pieces right here so that it fits nice and snug on the track, but still slides. It also has a depth stop that goes from 0 all the way to 2 1/8. And the way this one works is you just push in on it and drop it down, push in and pull it up, however you want to do that. And it locks in place at every 16th. On the depth stop, you'll notice there's 2 levels actually. This one here and there's one here. The one up top is for when you have the track saw on the track. And then if you're using the saw off of the track, the depth stop is the lower one you would use. Now this little dial here lets you micro adjust it so that you can fine tune everything to get it right on. Speaking of fine tuning, if you need to fine tune this at 0, you need to make sure you have a perfect 90 degree. You can double check that with the blade, square everything up, and then if you need to micro adjust it, that little set screw right there lets you micro adjust 0 or 90. And then on the handle, you actually have to push this button to start plunging. You can see there's a lock there that when you push that button, that lock flips forward and lets you go past the plunge cut, and the saw will not operate until you push that and then pull the trigger. This is also a variable speed saw, so it goes from 6 down to 1. Or you can just take off the top battery and go into low power mode. The variable speed will still work, it just makes it less powerful. As with any Festool tool, you get a sweet container to go in, and they call these Systainers. You can put your batteries down in there, or you can just leave them on the saw. Has a place to store your bag. The saw sets down in that molded foam, so it's not gonna rattle around. Throw you some extra blades in there if you want. You can even put your accessories down in there if need be. And then I didn't show this part, but this goes on the end of the track to keep the hose from getting tangled up, and it works well. But you can throw that in there too. And just in case you forget how to pack your tools up into the box, on the left-hand side, it gives you an example of how to store everything. And it has a piece of foam up here that keeps that handle when you shut the Systainer. That saw is not going to be moving around in there. It's going to be really secure. And if you ever forget what's in the box, nice picture on the front tells you what's in there. If you like to read, then you're in luck, because Festool has a battery manual, they have a track saw manual, they have this giant book manual, and then also inside the Systainer itself, there's actually really good instruction on how to operate it, how to change the blade, and how to turn on and off the kickback. If you are outside the US, or you just like the metric system more than the Imperial system, there's a sticker that they give you to put over this depth guide so you can operate in metric. One really cool feature about the track saw is that to change the blade, all you have to do is flip this switch up, and then it'll lock itself in place and you have access to the blade. And when that's locked, the blade is locked so that you can actually change it, and the tool to change it is actually stored in there, so you have everything easy access right there. It comes with this cross-cut blade, but I also got a ripping blade with mine. And it has a soft start on it, so you don't feel there's no jerk or sudden jolt when you actually power the saw on. Number 5 on the list is dust collection. Festool is known for their dust collection, and this one is no exception. However, it's good. It's really, really good. I just wish it was just a smidgen better. That's probably the only drawback to this that I've found. However, if you hook it up to the dust extractor, a Festool dust extractor, it works extremely well. The only sawdust you're getting is under the blade. Now, if you paired that with probably their MFT table, the multi-function table, similar to the Kreg table, it's gonna add that extra zero clearance underneath it, and that will solve the dust collection. I'm absolutely certain of it. The only thing is, if you're using this without the table and you're just cutting straight through, then you're gonna get that sawdust that's coming from under the blade. Other than that, it actually does collect a lot of sawdust, and the reason for that is, even when you plunge it, a lot of the blade is still here. The only sawdust, like I said, you're getting is underneath the blade. Other than that, it just keeps everything nice and contained, and then the sawdust gets pulled, especially with a dust extractor, it gets pulled back into the hose. If you're using the bag, then once it's full, which doesn't take long, you're gonna get more dust. I've got mine paired with the CT48E dust extractor. If you're interested in that video, I'll drop a link in the description below. I have a whole review on this dust extractor. Absolutely perfect, smooth cut. Got the bag on now, we'll make a cut and see how well it does with dust collection. You look at that fine dust, you're not getting any of that outside the saw. There's a little bit of heavier dust out there. That's what we collected. It's actually more than that in there. You'll notice here, if you don't have a bag and you don't have a hose hooked up, there is a lot of dust that comes out of this little port. So I would suggest using one or the other unless you're outside. One thing I didn't mention when I did the Kreg track saw review was you have to make an initial cut on this track, and it'll actually, this is a little plastic type piece, so it's made for zero clearance. So when you make that initial cut, it actually cuts a tiny bit of that off so that it's actually zero to your blade. And one quick thing to note about the tracks, this is a Festool track on top of a Kreg track, is you can actually use the Festool saw on the Kreg track, but you can see that the rail that the track saw rides on is slightly offset. If you put the Festool on this track, the saw blade is actually way over here and not right there at the splinter guard. Conversely, if you put the Kreg track saw on here, it's too far over, so you can't use that. So I'll be ordering me one more track for the Festool. Speaking of the track, I've got 2 track clamps here that go inside the bottom of the track to help clamp it down to materials. But I've been cutting this plywood just laying on this work table here, not clamped down, and this has a nice sticky back to it. They really do stick well. I like that. So I was actually going to try and activate the anti-kickback on there and make it work. I couldn't make it work, and I couldn't figure out why, so I went and watched their video, and I wasn't being aggressive enough with it. I don't want to take the chance on ruining my tracks, so if you want to see how the actual anti-kickback works, I'll link that video in the description. It's their video. Basically, they start the saw and they plunge it pretty hard into the material while it's sitting on the track. When it comes up, this loses contact and it shuts the saw off. However, I was a little more concerned about the initial point to where it comes up. It's going to nick, even not really do a whole lot of damage, but even nick this track a little bit, and I didn't want to take that chance. So, especially when they already have a video showing how it works. So, there you go. As far as cutting depth, the total overall cutting depth of the saw, you have 2 1/8 inches if you're not using the guide rail. If you do use the guide rail, you have 1 inch and 15/16 total depth. As far as fit and finish goes, you can't ask for a finer feeling tool when you pick it up and hold it. It's nice, solid construction. The handle has a nice grippy feel to it. It's a rubberized backing to it, so it's not gonna slip out of your hands. And as with any Festool brand tool, everything is just bing, just nice. It's just a good quality tool, and that's really, at this price point, you expect that. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. I mean, no tool is gonna be perfect, but is it awesome? You're dang right it is. If you like this video and you want to see a comparison between this saw and the Kreg and maybe even the Wind, let me know in the comments below. I would like to give a major thank you to Jeff, brother in Christ, who actually gifted me this saw, the track, the clamps, everything you've seen, Festool brand today. Thank you, sir. I will never do anything to deserve the amazing gift you've given me, and I can't thank you enough. Thank you. But more importantly than that, I appreciate your friendship. You mean the world to me. If you like this video, click that box right there. It's going to take you to the Kreg track saw review, full breakdown review of that saw. Clicking that box gets you the big old virtual fist bump. Also, another one of my favorite tool reviews right there.